Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jim.
It's been quite some time since we've done a deep dive into a specific artist. What would you think of that for today's episode?
Wow, that's not a bad idea, Jim. Uh, what are you thinking about?
Well, I got somebody. This band is just fantastic. That's really what I think. The only question is, by the way, which one's pink?
And hello and welcome to two guys talking about uh, who is pink, I guess. That's what we're going to talk about. But we're also going to talk about records as we dive into that big mystery, the mystery of rock and roll. But my name is Steve, and I am a record collector.
And my name's Jim, and I own a record store. And yeah, we've done some deep dive into artists before, and it's been quite some time. And this one, what are we, 170 plus episodes deep into the podcast? And it seems
Yeah.
like we talk about Pink Floyd every other week. We've never done a deep dive into a band that is quite obviously a favorite of both of ours. So maybe
Yep.
this is it. We should do this. But here's the deal, folks. Because it's so overarching, there's so much of it out there. We're going to stick with just the studio albums today. How's that sound, Steve?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Even just trying to get through the studio albums is not easy.
You got a couple of
And,
hours?
and yeah. Well, I did find out, Jim, I'm not a completist.
Uh oh. Uh oh.
Yeah.
Well, I found out I am, and then some.
Okay.
Oh my. Well, we'll get to that deep dive into Pink Floyd here in just a couple of moments. But as we do each and every week on the show, we like to talk about our most recent pickups and show them off as well. I had a good week this week, so I've got a few things to show. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's always something kind of coming in. And so I told my daughter-in-law the other day, I go, what? No record album today? Boy, this is a very sad day for me. So,
Your
but I
mailman
hit a new
was
record
just, what?
store.
What? Yeah.
Yep. But I'll start with our one of our past guests, a friend of ours, Chance from
Yeah.
Concert Buddy. He sent me two albums from
Cool.
a group, and the main person from this group is in the VC, and I want to make it. It's his name's Louis Golden. And Louis Golden he does most of this all the music on this, but his group is called Sharon is Karen, and so that's Sharon is Karen. And he just released a brand new album here. And the name of this album is Dark Forces 95. And it's pop punk. So which is kind of fun to say, pop punk.
Pop punk.
Uh yeah, and it definitely has kind of that punk going, but there's great harmonies and everything else in there and very catchy tunes. So he just put out this album, and this is his first album. And again, Sharon is Karen, The Heart of the World. So I know these are available, I believe, on Bandcamp is where you can pick these up at. He does have a channel. He doesn't post a lot of videos, but he pops onto a lot of live streams. So he's very, very knowledgeable on music. And I've heard the name. I just couldn't tell you anything about it. And so Chance sent me these. And obviously, I will go into those next week on my channel, my morning
Cool.
show.
Cool.
Then from Radio Wasteland, who just keeps taking my retirement. But
Well,
it helps your retirement, Jim.
it
Whatever I
does.
can do to make you retire and enjoy life better, I'm happy.
Much appreciated.
But
You're keeping the lights on.
you bet. We got Muddy Waters, Brass, and the Blues. I've never seen this album out there before. I really knew zero about it, and it was one I kind of debated upon. But after listening to some samples, I thought I'd give it a shot. On here, they wanted to take Muddy Waters and give him more focus on the vocals more than just the guitar, almost like a crooner
Hmm.
in some cases.
Really?
Okay, so it's very different. And he does a lot of covers from a Bob Miller, Jay Robinson, Arm Jones. I mean, they're all covers from, we got a Lawrence Welk and no L.J. Welch, no L.J. Welch, not Lawrence Welk, L.J. Welch and McKinley Morganfield. So there is one that he's on, but otherwise it's a variety of different people on here, and there is brass, so it's a fuller sound. So it's not your straight ahead blues, but some of it really goes pretty good, goes along quickly. Some of it's a little bit slower. Totally different.
And that's
Totally
part
different.
of that, and I think that's what your hemming and hawing was. Is that's part of the Chess Acoustic Sound series, those reissues that are doing those
Exactly.
very, very high audiophile ones, and you've gotten quite a few of those so far, I think.
I have. I think getting toward most of them,
Wow.
and because Jim keeps showing them.
Well,
Hey, we got this. Oh, well, okay. I think I need to have that. But the other one that came out with that was Howlin' Wolf's and what they call the Rockin' Chair one. And it's a self-titled Howlin' Wolf. An original of this goes for quite a bit of money. This is the quintessential Howlin' Wolf album. And it was nice to see that they put this out. You got Red Roosters on here, Wang Dang Doodles on here, Spoonfuls on here. What I love is almost every single song is written by Willie Dixon, because he was the songwriter. But if you want one Howlin' Wolf album, this is it. And really, this album took his 45s from the 50s.
mm-hmm.
And put them together to make an album, because they were just putting out 45s at Chess. And so we came up with this album. Incredibly good album.
Just as a quick follow, those Chess Acoustic sound, you're finding that they do sound really good, and they're made well.
Yeah, I totally think it is. Yes. Now we're basing upon my hearing, but so. And like that one, I did have, I think, one of those 80 represses of it. So, I mean, you got to have that one if you like blues. But yeah, I do. I really like the sound of them. And It's just exciting that blues, they're giving this treatment to blues and not just jazz.
Good.
So,
cool.
I like that. And the final one, just when I said, and a couple weeks ago, I showed a Paul Ngozi album, and it says, I have every single repress that they've come out with from Paul Ngozi and his family. They repressed a new one. So this actually is not Paul Ngozi and the family, though it's the same. He still has Chrissy Tembo on drums. It's a live, heavy equals metal. And so a live album from them, really good, rocks really hard. It comes in with the same. This is from Now and Again Records, so I get still the same booklet that every one of these. I think I got 10 of these booklets now, not more.
Identical ones.
Yep, identical. They don't change them. Just it's probably because there's not too many people that try to get every single Paul Ngozi album, except for me.
Except for you. You're driving that.
I'm driving that for them. No one's even bothered to put this in Discogs yet, and it's been out for 2 weeks. So I need people need to get cracking on that, because I'm too lazy. But this is good. I really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. But Paul Ngozi was just such a big figure in, obviously, Zamrock, one of the leaders. And so to have a live album is something completely different. So most enjoyable. And now I have every repress that they put out from Paul Ngozi for
Until
at least a couple weeks.
For the next couple weeks. They'll pair that with another Chess Acoustic pairing.
Yes. Oh, there's no doubt. That's it, Jim.
All right. Well, cool. This week I've added a pair. This really cool Canadian power trio, Steve, that you may have heard of. Nope, Triumph this time. How's that?
Oh,
Other Canadian power trio. I picked up a Progressions of Power, and I'm not a completist with them. I do have a lot of their their mid stuff, the late 70s, it's starting with Just a Game. I don't have the first couple, but Progressions of Power was from 1980, just a good solid rock album. Big one on here is Take My Heart, Hard Road. Not their biggest, but still a very cool one. But also, I mean, dug this in as well. From 1984, I got a copy of Thunder 7, also from Triumph. And what's kind of cool about this is in digging through Discogs to add this in, this is one of those QEIX or QEX, or how do you say it, to the limited edition pressings. It's got the sticker, but it also has a gold promo stamp on the front as well. And here's where a little bit of the mystery comes in on this. It does not have promotional labels. They're not a white label promo. It's not a promo stamped on the label. It's just a regular old MCA rainbow label. But for some reason, this entry in Discogs lists it as a promotional copy, a promo copy. And short of the promo stamp, which this does not always mean that it's a promo copy, or promo labels or promo pressing. It could be a promo copy, just not a promo pressing. We'll have to dive into that, the meanings of that at some point with the promos. But this one, probably because of this pressing, was meant only for promotional purposes. Maybe that's why that's in Discogs. But still some cool stuff. Spellbound is a good one off of that. Then,
no, I've never listened to Triumph. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't whistle a tune from them, but I've seen their albums out there.
Vocals not quite as high as Getty's, which I know is a turnoff for you, but they're close. They get up there a little bit.
What's with Canadians and high vocals? What goes on in Canada?
It's the cold air.
I think it must be.
All right. Now, secondly, I picked up a couple of Cake albums, and I had to go to the Cake website for this instead of going through my distributors to get stuff, which I do. There's a lot of Cake reissues. They've been reissuing these. But their first album, Motorcade of Generosity, and I have to get to my notes here, originally released in 1994. Original copies of this, Steve, they're up there if you can ever find this. And this has not been widely reissued, i.e. through the big distributors that I get stuff from. So I just happened to be looking, and I saw some newer pressings of this on Discogs, and I thought, okay, well, that's odd. It's not in my system to order, so where are they getting it? From the Cake website. And this one is on a limited edition Clementine colored vinyl, which is kind of an orange colored vinyl. Very cool.
Yep.
But their first album really kind of set the standard for the sound that Cake is known for. It's just that a little bit of brass and the harmony in there and the lower vocals kicking through, and very interesting songwriting. But I'd not had this. The song Rock and Roll Lifestyle, if you've not heard this, I'll put that in the playlist if it's available on Spotify. It's a fun song that just kind of pokes light at getting older as you're trying to rock out like you used to and you can't quite do it anymore. And then secondly, I had a good copy of Comfort Eagle from Cake. That was their fourth album from 2001. This has got my absolute favorite Cake song on there, and it's the title track, Comfort Eagle. I dig that so much. It's very cool. And I did have a copy. This was one of the ones that was reissued more widely, but when I was poking around for Motorcade, up pops a colored vinyl version, which I couldn't get through my channels normally, and this is one of those Coke bottle green ones. So I upgraded to a colored vinyl version of Comfort Eagle from Cake, and put my other one out on the shelf here. So
there's been a lot of colored vinyl upgrades going on with you, Jim. Last week, man, you've become the colored vinyl guy.
Yeah, a lot of folks are, and yes, I understand the arguments. Oh, they don't sound as good. I can't tell. So either way, they're kind of cool looking. And if I've got one, then now I have to get the rest. So the rest of my Cake reissues, I think there's 3 other ones out there, are on black vinyl. So now I'm going to be watching the Cake website for those other ones to see if we can do it. Well, if you folks are curious about Cake and you'd like to have your cake and spin it too, like I do, you can head over to the descriptions in the podcast, and we'll put it together a Spotify playlist so you can listen in on some of the things that we talk about today. You'll find that in the description of the BLEAVE Podcast Network episode, which then feeds it down to iHeart. And so if you're listening to us, you have to do a little bit of extra work to look into that description a little bit deeper to get to the link for the Spotify playlist. But on YouTube, it's right there as well. You can check it out. And that's basically just to keep us from getting in Dutch with the copyright police a little bit for putting that in. We'd want this to reach as many folks as possible. So, and if you haven't done so, speaking of the BLEAVE Podcast Network, if you are listening, please feel free to just leave a comment and or give us a review. I guess that's what helps on the audio side of podcasts.
Oh.
If you toss a review down, that helps spread it a little bit further within the realm of the audio podcasting. The YouTube side, we're doing, I think, pretty good. We're getting all these comments, lots of cool stuff coming in regardless. So we'll keep up on that as we go through. So I don't think we're going to have any trouble, Steve, today finding audio samples for some of the stuff we'll be talking about in our artist deep dive into Pink Floyd. I'm wearing my creepy relic shirt today, and you had to dig up your Prism shirt. There we go.
Yep.
The overall Pink Floyd shirt. This, I think, for each of us, and we joked earlier about how it doesn't seem like we can go a week or two without even mentioning something, because so many Pink Floyd albums touch on so many different things that we like to talk about here, as far as the emotional connection to music, some of our first albums, some of our most enjoyable, some great repressings. Many of the subjects that we delve into, Pink Floyd worms their way into them in one way, shape, or form, it seems like. So they bear mentioning. So I thought, well, what better way to really take this all the way home than to do a deeper dive into their studio albums? I'd love to do further, but man, we only have that hour to get into it. Yeah. And they have a wealth of studio albums as we get into. And for this, Steve, I think the best way, let me back up a little bit. I've always kind of thought that you can describe Pink Floyd's discography best by breaking it into three sections. You've got early Floyd with the Barrett influence. And yes, that does count a little bit after Barrett was gone. Then you've got the classic Floyd era, that sweet spot right in the middle where they hit their huge commercial success. And then you've got your late Floyd where the bickering begins to overtake everything. And then finally Rogers, I don't want to say kicked to the curb. He took his guitar, his bass, and went home and I'm not going to play with you guys anymore, and took off. So you've got your early, your mid-classic, and then the Rogerless late Floyd. And in each of those, I personally have some favorites. I've got some albums that are not my favorites that I've got simply because it's the completist in me. And you're not quite there in the completist, but we'll work on that for you. But, aside from, we joke a lot also about me liking Rush. But I guess that in the realm of rock and roll, anything from prog rock to classic rock, to more ethereal, ambient music like the late Floyd tended to be, this is up there for me as far as a favorite band. And I'm not going to brag and say I'm an expert on everything Floyd. I'm not. But this is a band that's important to me, and it shows in my collection.
Yeah, I agree. It was an early band. It was one I was introduced by my big brother, because when you grow up on AM radio, you do not hear Pink Floyd. And since none of my friends listened to music, I just didn't know about it till he came back from college with Dark Side of the Moon. Or not with it, says you need to buy it. My big brother wouldn't buy an album for anything because he'd have to spend money. But hey, little brother, you need to get Dark Side of the Moon. Okay. But it was mind-blowing. And I want to show this real quick. It's a Pink Floyd book. One of our past guests, Steve from A is for Alice, B is for Bob, C is for Carlson. He had shown this on his channel. Yeah, it's like that, huh? It was Everything Under the Sun, the complete guide to Pink Floyd. This goes through every single album, goes through every single song, and talks about it for a page to 2 pages. And then not only that does it go through that, it then hits every concert they've ever done. It has a timeline. If I can find that on here, I said this is a heck of a book. It is. I haven't got it read yet, but so we have this timeline that happens on every single concert Pink Floyd ever did, and then at the back of it, is every bootleg that's ever come out.
Oh,
And
man.
that goes for over 100 pages, Jim. And there is tons of bootlegs on here. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
each page is packed with them. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of Pink Floyd bootlegs. Goes through them all.
Now you know why
It's a,
we're sticking with studio albums only for this
that's
episode.
right. Yeah.
And I
Fascinating book from an important artist.
I held up a book too at the beginning, and this is just simply titled "Pink Floyd" by Glenn Povey. Mine's got more pictures than that one, Steve. I think that says something about me.
Yeah, that one nothing there.
This
No,
really
no
kind of
pictures.
breaks the stuff down album by album and gives a little history. But what's kind of cool is that it bills itself as having, where did I read this on here? Um, it has removable media, as so it calls. Basically, it's posters and cards that are peppered throughout. So, and it
Okay.
explains what those posters are. Luckily, they're all still intact. There's a pocket with extra, because many Floyd albums are known, especially Dark Side, for their inserts and their posters and the like. So
Yeah.
this one's more of a picture book than anything, but it does have a lot of cool things, and it is also a breakdown, studio album by studio album, that ends at Division Bell and doesn't go further. So it's probably a little bit older as well. But when we start talking about the discography of Pink Floyd, this is something that stretches back to 1967 officially. But the band, and if you do a little more reading, you can be surprised that they got their start even in the pre-Beatles popular era, back all the way to 1962. As many of these
Yeah.
British bands did, they met in college, and this one started with Roger Waters and Nick Mason, and a little bit later Richard Wright brought in. So even Syd Barrett wasn't involved initially, and they went through several different name changes here and there before landing on. I mean, there's even one called the Screaming, or the Abdabs, and then the Screaming Abdabs, which, by the way, is a bootleg title or a band bootleg title of theirs. If we ever cover bootlegs, we'll get into there. Then there was one they did that was called the Tea Set, and then they couldn't use that because there was another band named Tea Set on a bill somewhere, and so they took their name. And do you know the history on this, Steve? The Pink Floyd name
Yeah.
and where that comes from. This is where I think it's a cool tie-in to two guys talking about records, because here you've got a bunch of Brits in their early 20s playing music in colleges and pubs and in and around London, and we need a name for a band, mates. And so what does Syd Barrett do? After he did join in a little bit after some personnel changes. Barrett, by the way, was a childhood friend of Roger Waters, and so as they did
Yeah.
some shifts around, he brought Barrett on board. And so when they needed a new name, he looked to his record collection and found a compilation album of blues and picked out the name Pink Anderson, two Carolina bluesmen from over in the U.S. Pinky Anderson, I forget his actual name on there, and Floyd Council. So you've got Pink Anderson and Floyd Council, and Barrett said, "Let's call ourselves Pink Floyd." And there we go. But he looked to his record collection to make that happen.
Perfect way to go.
It
And
is.
made a name that no one could figure out.
Yep. Now,
Which one is
when they
Pink?
switched to Pink Floyd, and we're going to start off, I think maybe we can go chronologically, obviously, through there, and we can
Yeah,
talk about our
let's
favorites
do
at the
that.
end. So right off at the onset, we've got Piper at the Gates of Dawn,
Yeah.
and a tremendously collectible album if you've got the originals on that early Tower Records with the label on through there. But what's very cool on this, Steve, and I wanted to bring this up, when they first changed to that, the name of the band was The Pink Floyd. And on my copy of Piper, you can see on the flip side is meant to be on the spine, but the band title on there is called The Pink Floyd. And I thought,
So is
okay,
mine. Yeah.
yep. So you've got an early one, and I just, out of curiosity, I went to the record shelves here at the store and dug up one of the reissues that they've done recently. Not the case. It's Pink Floyd on the spine. They dumped the. And I guess I'm not too keen on the history of how and why they dumped the from the title, but there you have it. But with the first two albums, this is where Syd Barrett's, I think, influence and experimentation came through. I mean, obviously Roger Waters was a big driving force. He'd started on guitar but moved to bass in those pre-Pink Floyd era. as they were going through some personnel changes. But with both Piper and Saucerful of Secrets, their first two albums from 1967 and 1968, two follow-ups, you've got that a tremendous amount of experimentation happening with the sound. And that, I think, at being one of those, that not the first, but being at the forefront of that psychedelic, we're going to take and see how we can torture sound to make it come out and sound the way we want it to, with just noise in some cases.
And of course, they came up with their shows, the psychedelic shows, the backdrop. LSD seemed to play a small part of it.
A little bit, you'd tend to think.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I remember, well, I started with Dark Side of the Moon. It's so, working backwards. And I remember I bought this and I go, huh? What? I mean,
Yes.
not knowing exactly, what I'm getting. I'm go, well, that's sure in the heck's not Dark Side of the Moon. And it took a while for me to really get into this album, but now it's one of my favorite Pink Floyd albums. I really like what Barrett was doing. I mean, See Emily Play is one of the greatest singles.
Oh yeah.
It's phenomenal, but Interstellar Overdrive's on here, which is amazing. And
Yep.
it's just even Pow or Tox gets a little weird, but it's really good. I think that was more piano driven.
Yep.
This is the album that grew on me of all Pink Floyd albums.
And I'm like you. I came in the middle. My first foray into Floyd was in the early '80s with The Wall, both the movie and the album kicking in. That did get a lot of FM airplay, the bigger cuts off of there. And so I had to work my way backwards as well. But Piper definitely in the early Floyd is there for me. Now, I didn't bring it with me today, but I do have a copy of, I've got a first press US copy, and then I think a 2-year repress after that of the UK copy. And the reason I've got two copies of that is because the song lineup, the track listing is different on each of those. Most of the songs are there, but the UK has a couple of different cuts on there. So kind of a cool little thing to add in.
I got 3 copies of this too. I'm looking at, God, I got 3 copies, and it's probably the same reason. So,
but then you move into Saucer, which I think is still it's still an important one for them. Not as favorite, not as good, I think, in the realm of Piper, but Set Controls for the Heart of the Sun was always a big live one. They included that. I mean, that's on. You talked about the boots, but also you get things like Jug Band Blues, which really isn't a blues song, so to speak. And that's what I forgot to mention too. A lot of the early pre-Floyd stuff, they, like so many other Brit bands, did concentrate, and they took their name from the blues artists, but they played the blues as well. I've got a Pink Floyd bootleg, and I know we said we weren't going to talk, but one whole side of a triple LP is just them jamming live a blues jam for 20 minutes. So that is their roots moving into. They tied that into all of this experimentation.
Yeah, this one, everyone was writing. Richard Wright actually wrote complete songs on this, which is a rarity. It's like after this album, well, they let him do it once in a while, but I was surprised how much he wrote on there. Of course, Roger Waters really dived into this.
Yep.
And Gilmore now appears on here.
Yep.
And, A Saucerful of Secrets was written by all of them. There is only one Barrett song. And to me, that kind of, I'm not a big fan of Jug Band Blues. To me, that was a throwaway song. But we're trying to get Barrett something because he was, he was leaving our planet by now, going to some other interstellar overdrive. But so that one to me was like, well, hey, we got to get something for him. But it's fun to hear that early stuff, and there are definitely classics that are played at concerts, were constantly played.
And we don't have to rehash the history. I think most everybody who has followed Floyd knows the reasons for with Barrett being such an influential and essentially founding member, once they changed it to Pink Floyd, in his struggles that he had with mental health issues as well as substance abuse. as really being the reason for him. I don't even want to call it leaving, but just kind of drifting slowly away. And they brought Gilmore in, which I think in the long run saved the band from obscurity,
Yeah.
quite frankly. And yes, I don't want to downplay Rogers' beginnings and influence in through there, but it's Gilmore's guitar that helped shape what they would become in that classic mid era that we're getting to shortly. But yes, definitely. I think with Saucer, and then when you get into the soundtrack for More, which was their next album, dated 1969, you're still seeing them trying to hold on to that Syd Barrett influence with the experimentation and wrapping Gilmore's guitar into this as well. But this is all. Is this in there? Is this one of the ones you're missing as well from '69?
I am. I used to have that, and I just haven't brought it back in. It wasn't as essential to me.
And no, it isn't. And there's some cool stuff on here, but much like they did with Zabriskie Point. But the soundtrack for Zabriskie Point, this is a movie, has lots of different artists on there. The Grateful Dead's on there, but Pink Floyd essentially was the bulk of that, and they did a lot of the score music for Zabriskie Point, whereas the film More, just another experimental late 60s film, really built around their music. I think that's what its primary focus was. And so they call this a soundtrack, but I'm not certain it's that. It's a Pink Floyd album, and it's counted in their discography, but not one of their best. The one that is, though, and this one defies kind of explanation for me, because if we're saying we're going to stick with studio albums, Steve, and then we bring up Umaguma from 1969, this is one there. And you've got, now, is that an original or is that a UK?
Yeah, it has the GG.
Yep. For those of you who are collectors, this is something you want to keep an eye out for. My copy of Umaguma is a US copy. It's the first pressing, but down in here, there's a small little white triangle. There was an album there that, and I'll show Steve's here. It was a soundtrack to the film Gigi, and there was a little copyright dispute over them allowing that image on there without permission. And so US copies of this was just kind of whited out. And I think reissues, they've put that on there. They settled that after Pink Floyd made it big. But yeah, that's the sought after one is what you've got, Steve.
Yeah, it took me a while to find that. That was that was a quest. So I have one without it. And this album, I kind of, the live stuff's good. I like the live, but when I got into that studio stuff, I mean, I'm still not figuring out the whole thing with the picks.
That has got one of the coolest song titles for one of the weirdest songs ever. And that's Band 6, Side 2, the last cut of the studio album. The exact title, Steve, is Several Species of Small Furry Animals Gathered Together in a Cave and Grooving with a Pict, and written by Roger Waters. That is just nothing but it's a collection of sounds thrown together because we were high and we thought it would be cool.
Exactly.
But yeah, including a full live side on through here and then a studio album. It's always kind of mystified me as to why they would not have just released a studio album. But hey, I'm not one to question.
Well, and that live side is, I mean, it has 4 top-notch songs that they used on that. Incredible. And the double album set's just worth it for that live.
Yep.
Yeah, that second one, it was experimentation. You could see bringing in sounds. What are we doing with this? And just, hey, I got an idea. All right, let's do it.
And I said, I'm sorry, I said that was on the side 2. It was not. It was on the first side of the second album. That Several Small Furry Creatures. So. Yep.
So different album, and they all actually wrote. Even Nick Mason wrote a song.
Yep.
So, and it kind of sucked. Sorry, Nick. But he is like.
And I still count Umaguma in that phase 1 of Floyd, the early experimental phase.
Definitely.
Then we step into the 70s, and the next 2 albums, 3-ish, I'm still counting in that early phase because they're finding their way to get to what would become Dark Side of the Moon, but they're still hanging on to Piper at the Gates of Dawn. So next up is 1970, Atom Heart Mother. And Oh,
Yeah,
you have got an original master recording version of that,
I
Steve.
do.
And that's got to
Yes,
sound absolutely great, I would imagine. But
it
this one
does.
is got, I mean, a couple of very experimental ones on here, but for me, nothing tremendously memorable. Fat Old Son, they've done that live a couple of different times, and If is cool. But Adam Hart
Mhm.
Mother is a suite of longer, just it's a drawn together one where you see the seeds of what would become Dark Side and Wish and Animals forming in Adam Hart Mother, but
Yeah,
still
it.
kind of holding on to that noise
Yep.
experimentation from the
You
previous.
get the symphonic part of it,
Yep.
but this also had, which I just can't, I don't like, Ellen's Psychedelic Breakfast,
Yeah.
which was three or four jams that they had done, three or four jams. They just had these, and so they go, well, let's just put them together and we'll call it a song. And so they put these jams that had nothing to do with each other, and there was three of them, and they just splice it together, and hey, we filled out our album. I mean, that's kind of like, well, we're out of ideas. How about this? I don't like that one at all. I mean, I have a hard time just listening to that one. If is a very quiet water song. That's
Mm-hmm.
actually a ballad, shall we say, almost.
Yep.
But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't mind this album, but I like side one where they add more of the symphony. But that's just my classical.
Onward through the 70s, and Metal is next. The next two albums, again, they're finding that footing, and I know that they're working with some different producers through here. But when you get to Metal and Obscured, which we'll show here in a second, this is where, again, Steve, I think we're getting some extra oddness on here. You've got Seamus, which is basically just the dog barking for a couple minutes with them
Yeah,
jamming underneath it. I read a story on that, and I think it was Gilmore who said, well, we got a dog. Let's get him in here and just record the dog howling. We'll get him to howl. But one of
damn
these
drugs.
days is just, it's a powerful but dark song.
Hmm.
The lyric, one of these days, I'm going to cut you into little pieces. I think, if I recall correctly, was in reaction to a poor review they had gotten from a radio disc jockey. So it's almost kind of a threat. But this is the album. Fearless is just a great song, also. But this is the album that brought us Echoes. The entirety
Yeah.
of side two is Echoes. And I'll say it, Steve. 95% of Echoes is a fantastic song. You get in
Hmm.
that midsection, which is affectionately referred to as the seagulls, or the squawking section through there.
Yeah.
It's a little
But
odd,
they
but
really had learned to bring it in outside sounds, but make it into something that added to the music.
yes, a little more
You know,
coherency.
instead of just, hey, let's put that in there because we're high or whatever. I'm sure it sounds great. Here it was making sense. Yeah, side one, yeah, I that's Seamus. I mean, I could just, I hate it. San Tropez is really different. That was just kind of a more of a laid back type song. It
An
wasn't
island
bad,
song,
but
Saint Tropez, right? Yep.
yeah, San Tropez, that's it. But Eccles, yeah, by far, again, a classic
You
for a
know,
full side.
side note, if you're ever poking around on YouTube, I once came across a video that billed itself as Pink Floyd's classic Echoes without the squawking, without the seagull squawking. So somebody had re-edited that section out, which, again, you probably shouldn't do. That would upset an artist in their overall vision, but it was interesting nonetheless to kind of hear. So then we
Yep.
get into 1972 and Obscured by Clouds, which is the end of that experimental era, I think, for me. Again, they're still working their way toward Dark Side. But Free 4 is just a great song on here as well. And not high up there on me for an album, but Obscured by Clouds, the title track, and Free 4 are my favorite cuts off of this one, and still
Yeah.
makes it worthwhile to have as a part of the collection.
This was about the last one that Richard Wright really had a lot of
Yes.
writing on there. He worked with the other two on different songs, but you see his writing on here more. But there is a lot of just Waters Gilmore
Yep.
So those two are really coming into their own as far as songwriting right now and doing, a bunch. Yeah, it's not bad. I re-listened to this last night just because I haven't listened to it probably in a few years. I mean, it's not the one you pull.
No.
And I go, okay, this isn't too bad. I was thinking I really didn't like it. And then I thought, no, it's fine. I don't mind it at all. It's not as strong as the other ones,
Yep.
but still is pretty good. And again, they were changing.
And change they did with
Mhm.
1973 and Dark Side of the Moon. This was the kickoff of I think their classic era. And yes, I do have
Yeah,
the MoFi one as well. I just brought
I
my
know you
original
do.
here. This
Yep.
one, from a collectability standpoint, Steve, and we've talked about this and searching for discogs for the proper pressing. So many of them out there, and we're talking thousands of different versions of this between vinyl and
Yeah.
CD and whatever the case may be. But the one you want to look for if you are a collector, obviously the MoFi one is fantastic. You want to get a hold of that one because it does sound good. But in the US, we've got our Harvest label ones, and I get a lot of people coming into the store. So I've got a copy of Dark Side of the Moon. I see that this thing's worth a fortune. It's like, well, hold on. There's a lot of different factors. The vinyl has to be near pristine because of the way the album is laid out and the content. Yes, pops and crackles add a little bit of character to the
Mm.
sound, but anything more than a pop or a crackle is distracting from what this album is intended to be. But originally, this came with two different posters, and I know the reissues did the same as well. So it came with two different posters as inserts. And so if you're looking to value a Dark Side of the Moon, the condition, whether or not it contains the posters, and I don't even want to call them, they're not postcards, they're two stickers. And so to find stickers that weren't peeled off and flapped somewhere on the album cover
Yep.
is what really creates the value of this. But enough about the vinyl side. Let's talk about and as we have before, just the sheer immensity of and importance of the album itself, the sound.
For me, I would rank this as a life-changing album musically. An album that was something, again, coming out of AM radio, no idea about this, and to hear that, it uh, it, it was an unbelievable experience. It was something that I couldn't explain. It's just, this is music I've never heard, never even thought you could do something like this.
Yep.
And it just created this. I mean, I love for this album, but it's essential for, though there are people that don't like Pink Floyd, so obviously to them it's not essential.
Yes.
But most people will. That's probably an album that is in more collections than any other collection
Yep.
out there. And because of what it did and the sonics of it, just mind blowing.
It carries their earlier experimentation into a tremendously more well structured final product and ties all of that early Floyd together with this is now going to be our defining sound moving forward. This
Yeah.
is how we will create, this is how we will structure songs, this is how we will make an album tie itself together all the way through as a concept album, but not in the concept of narrative, but in the concept of fluidity, I guess is the best way to put that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. This is an album you will find, and it's we joked about being hundreds, if not 1,000, some odd different variations of that out there. And if you're a completist on Dark Side, good luck to you.
Yeah, and we got plenty of them. But
Yeah.
I think the other huge thing is Ellen Parsons.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mentioned that.
I mean, you think he got this thing put together, probably took their bad points of some of the other albums that they struggled with, and got something made that was incredible. And obviously, he went on to a great
Yep.
career because of, I mean, this album put him on the map.
But stepping in as a producer too, to kind of give an overall vision to what the band was creating at that time. I think,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about our endpoints, and that was your inroad to Floyd. And I mentioned that The Wall was mine, which is still a few years off, but that worked its way in. I think after The Wall for me, it was Wish You Were Here and Dark Side and Animals kind of all at the same time based upon that. So I'm within the span of, as my budget would have allowed back then, back in the
Yeah.
early 80s, getting The Wall first and then working my way backwards into those next three all at once was just you use the term life changing, and I will to some extent agree with that because it was such a different sound than what I was used to. That it just
Yep.
was immersive and important in some ways.
And it still sounds fresh. It
Yes.
doesn't feel dated to me. Now, of course, we're, older, but it does. It's just, and every new artist, what most will say, they've listened to that. And
Yeah.
yeah, amazing.
Which carries us forward because without Dark Side, you would not have gotten Wish You Were Here, and this is up there. I
Yeah.
teeter a lot between my favorites, between Wish You Were Here and Animals, depending upon my
Mhm.
mood of the day. And you've got the outer sleeve on that one. Oh, that's one of the reissues that you've brought in.
Yeah, that's one of the. I don't have an original of this one yet.
Ah,
I
okay.
have a CD box set of it. I have the vinyl box set of it. I have this, but I actually don't have an original cover. I
But
haven't found one that's good.
1975, Wish You Were Here, another one that just sonically is important and it carries that. And I think it really, if Dark Side really made Pink Floyd what they are, then I think Wish You Were Here solidified their place in history as an important band.
Yeah.
Following up on that kind of a follow
Yep.
up is rare. How's that? Is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to get
For
to.
me, Dark Side had always been my favorite, but this is kind of taken over because of David Gilmour's guitar playing.
Yep.
His guitar playing, I it just came to the front on this, and it is so incredible. His vocals are great on there. I like it. He's singing more to me, and I like his voice better than Rogers. I think
Yep.
it's just calmer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
Roger's always so angry, damn it. He's just
Yes.
always mad. And so, you got to have Gilmour come in to quiet things down for you.
We
But
then skip forward.
Gilmour's guitar is incredible.
Oh yeah, indeed. We skip forward a couple years to another concept album now in 1977 with Animals. I've long touted this as my favorite, and I think that that's just because I've got memories of young adulthood and listening to this
Hmm.
very frequently. And just the nature of this is that it invites you to sit back and absorb it. You don't just listen to it; you have to absorb. Same thing with the other two, but Animals for me more than the others is one that you have to experience, and you have to kind of turn off everything else. And which for me, turning off parts of my brain has not been an issue of late. So
Yeah.
if you can do that and absorb what you're listening to, this is a fantastic album. And I do have the remix. After the falling out and before Floyd sold their catalog in the past year or two, they did the remix on this, which, and I think this is probably where a lot of the animosity, obviously beginning to build and Wish You Were Here, but through Animals and The Wall, it started coming to a point between Roger versus everyone. I don't want to say it's
Yep.
Gilmour, but Roger versus everyone. The difference between this and the remix that they did just a few years back is immense because it really brought a lot of Richard Wright's keyboards back to the forefront, and it brought the thematic nature of the animal sound effects more importantly forward than were in the original mix. Don't get me wrong,
Sure.
the original mix is still great, but it's interesting to hear the different take on that remix, which stresses the concept of the animals a little bit
Mhm.
further and a little bit higher than the original did.
And this was the album where Waters wrote every single song except for one he wrote with Gilmour. He took
Yep.
over.
Yep.
And to me, that's why it's a darker album. I mean,
Yes.
it's I just re-listened to this last night, by the way, Jim. So, and I told Jim I listened to all my Pink Floyd yesterday, and I really did. It's just one side, but I liked it better than I remember. Okay, but it's just the darkness of it. I
Yes.
think sometimes that's my issue. And again, it's all written by Waters, and that guy had some issues.
It still does. Still
Yeah,
does.
still does. He has some
Now,
mommy issues.
you talked about him taking over the songwriting rather, and that is what really kicks into place with probably one of their biggest next to Dark Side, that being
Hmm.
1979 and The Wall. And
Yeah.
very quick note on the collectability of The Wall. If you can find a copy that has the original card insert that they put in lieu of a hype sticker or a print on the title that interrupted the bricks on the front, that's the way to go. The other thing too, Steve, and this ties directly into the songwriting arguments that began with Animals and kicked into The Wall. If you are looking for the true original first pressing of something like this, you have to look inside because, and let me call this up a little bit tighter for those that are watching here. If you have a copy that on the inside of the gatefold on the right lists words and music by Roger Waters, except, and then it lists the songs that the others were working on as well, then that is actually a true first pressing. But there was an argument on that. So later pressings from that year said words and music by Roger Waters and Pink Floyd. So there was an argument as far as even just putting the names in there, and it lists the group on there as well. But true first pressings, where Roger kind of had the say on that, and then they got looking at it and said, wait a minute, why did you leave our names off of that?
Well, I got the first pressing. I just need that card. You got an extra one, Jim, just kind of hanging around?
Don't, but I'll look for one for you. How's that in a trash?
Okay, there we go.
The Wall is an important album. And again, I discovered this probably in 1981-ish, roundabout there, through FM radio. And of course, listening to Another Brick in the Wall Part 3, which was just overplayed on the radio. And so, you know, as a high schooler, then you're like, this is so cool. We don't need no education, buddy. Without really understanding what that was about. And it wasn't until a few years later and getting into college that I began to absorb this album a little bit further for what its intent was. And you understand the message that the group and Waters were trying to get across. Now, that being said, over the past couple of decades, it seems like every 2 or 3 years, Roger decides that this means something else. Oh, this album is an anti-war album. Oh, this is an anti-capitalism album. Oh, this is an anti-fascist album. Oh, this is an anti-Trump album. Whatever the case is, Roger changes his mind. It doesn't matter to me. The album is what it is, as originally intended by those of us who experienced in its first few years of release, for me at least. But it's a concept album. It's not a soundtrack. This one's not a soundtrack, but it's part of the movie, and the movie is part of the album. And I think to really experience it, and I've told customers before too, they come in and they pick up a copy of The Wall. I say, well, have you seen the movie? And a lot of the younger people are like, well, no. Like, all right, here's what you got to do. You need to find the movie, but you have to turn your phone off. You have to have a little mixer next to you at the same time. Enjoy the movie, and you will not hear this. You will not listen to or hear the sound, the album the same again after you watch the movie. And I think the same thing is true the other direction too. But having seen the visuals that Waters and Floyd intended play out in the film The Wall really drives the concept of that tortured artist home.
Mm-hmm. For me, the greatest guitar solo by Gilmour's on here with Comfortably Numb.
Absolutely.
That just still gives you goosebumps. It is so incredibly good. That's one of their greatest songs. Overall, for the album, for me, I haven't seen the movie, Jim.
Steve.
It's just so freaking dark, man.
It's tremendously depressing.
Yeah, exactly.
Depressing.
I'm not the kind of guy that likes. God, you know what? I'm feeling awful happy. I need some depression today. Pop that baby on. God, now I feel nice. Life sucks. But
Bob Geldof absolutely nails it. Oh my goodness! Yes. I'm gonna have to go rewatch that.
Yeah, that's just my only problem. I mean, the two albums. Some of the songs, especially toward the end, I'm not as big of a fan of, but Comfortably Numb, bam. One of my all-time favorite songs.
When you get toward the end of The Wall and you've got that entire side devoted to the trial, that's something that really does only make sense if you're familiar with the movie. And when you see that, you understand what they're going through with that, with the music on that. So that's where it's almost dependent upon the visuals when you get to that sequence. Now, I am counting The Wall, Steve, as the end of the classic Pink Floyd era. Some may argue that the aptly titled Final Cut is the true end of that, but I think that Pink Floyd as a coherent group ended with The Wall in 1979. And by the time the final cut came around in 1983, this was where that animosity had completely overblown. And they even titled it The Final Cut because of that. From some of the stuff I've read, a lot of the music on the final cut was actually meant to be almost an extension of The Wall. It was some of the things that they have left over, some of the ideas and concepts that did not make it into The Wall from 79 that were carried through into this. It became a concept album, an anti-war concept album of sorts. But even the back, when it says the final cut is a requiem for the post-war dream by Roger Waters. So,
Yeah.
and I think this one too, if I recall, Richard Wright had gotten the boot by then. Let me look here. David Gilmour, Nick Mason,
you're
Roger
right.
Waters. Yeah. So Rick Wright had left the band because of Roger Waters didn't want him around anymore for that. And
Yeah.
it shows the absence of that balance of the synthesizers and keyboard from Wright with guitars, with Gilmour's guitar and Roger Waters singing and vocals and sound writing and Nick Mason's drums. It just wasn't there for me anymore with the final cut. So that's why I say, okay, well, this one is the last of that era of Pink Floyd, but without Wright, I think that this was the first of that late Floyd era that just was never going to recapture what they were.
Yeah, that one's missing from my catalog because I just didn't care.
No, and the only reason it's in my catalog is because of that little bug saying you need to be a completist.
Yep.
Well, that gets us to the post-Roger stuff with the next album coming in from 1987, A Momentary Lapse of Reason. And is this post-Roger, or did I speak to? Yep. Nick Mason, David Gilmour, Richard Wright, and Bob Ezrin comes in as well. But so this was the first one without Roger Waters. And you can tell the major difference. It becomes a lot more guitar-centric with Gilmour, and the songwriting changes with Gilmour. It's not as dark. And you've got a classic song on here, Learning to Fly, which is a very optimistic song, which never would have happened previously.
With Roger, it would have been learning to crash.
There we go. Not one of my go-tos, but still, I think for the reconstruction of Pink Floyd, this is a great way to start it off.
Yeah.
So final cut,
I got
maybe,
three.
okay.
Yeah, I got 3 of these albums because it's different colors. It just the cover's different on all
Yes. Oh,
3
yeah.
of those. It's one of those albums where it's, what's this? What's that? So I haven't been able to decide which one to get rid of.
We skip forward now to 1987 and 94, from 87 Momentary Lapse to 94 with Division Bell. Now this is a great album. Do you have a copy of this one?
No,
In yours?
I don't.
This is, I think Gilmour absolutely shines on this. There's a couple of very standout songs on here, High Hopes as well, and What Do You Want From Me? But in a way, this almost feels like it could be a David Gilmour solo album because it's that big of an influence he had on here. But as a great late Floyd album from the 90s, I think this one is just a fantastic standout. It's a very, I don't want to use the word optimistic twice in through there, but again, you can tell the difference between songwriting through here.
Yeah.
So great standalone. Which brings us to, in my book, went all the way up through Division Bell, but the last official Pink Floyd album went from 1994 to 2014, a 10-year lapse till you get to Endless River. Now, this is predominantly an ambient instrumental album, which showcases Gilmour's guitar more than anything. Another Gilmour. And again, much like Final Cut was to The Wall, this is almost a continuation of some of the ideas and songs from Division Bell, some of the stuff that wasn't used. This is also the last, a lot of the stuff, not a lot, some of the stuff was recorded before Richard Wright passed away. So he was included posthumously on this album as a member of Pink Floyd. But on its own, it just shows in the gatefold, it shows the 3 of them, Mason, Gilmour, and Wright, as that last remaining vestige of Pink Floyd wrapping things up, so to speak, in through here. And it had a great little poster insert. But if you are looking for a Pink Floyd album that's going to remind you of Dark Side, Wish, and The Wall, this one's not it. Again, this almost feels just like an ambient instrumental tribute to what Floyd was in their later years as they go through.
Sure.
There is one or two songs. Actually, I think there's only one song, and I forget which one it is, that has vocals on there, and that's it.
Okay.
But still, a
I
great
used to have
album.
it in CD, and I think I played it once and go, okay.
Yep.
And,
Just kind
yeah.
of a wrap up of everything on there as well. So there it is, Steve. Those are all of the Floyd albums. If you had to pick a favorite, the studio albums, what would you say? I mean, we've kind of hinted as what that was going to be.
Yeah. For me, it's between The Dark Side and Wish You Were Here. And right now it's Wish You Were Here. They've won. They've won out so far
Same,
because
you
of the
know what?
guitar solos.
I'm going to say the same thing. Dark Side, Wish, and Animals are all up there for me. The early
Yeah.
Floyd, Piper, I think we hit it on that as well. The late Floyd, for me, it's going to have to be Division Bell, I think is probably my favorite in through there. But it's interesting to see a band have that much evolution amongst the strife that they went through throughout their entire career, to be able to hold it together as they did through much of that to create what they did, I think is just a stupendous feat.
Yeah. It is. It's the creativity and what they came up with, and just the use of other sounds, but learning how to put them in and actually make it sound right instead of just throwing crap in.
Yep.
They did great.
In the book that I showed earlier, and this is for those of you who want to be collectors or if you're working to be a completist, we joke a lot. I've got a lot of Pink Floyd albums and I've got a lot of bootlegs, and I know you've got bootlegs too. In fact, folks, if you leave us a comment, would you like us to attempt, and I say attempt, would you like us to attempt a bootleg Pink Floyd episode? And do you have 3 hours of your life to spare?
Well,
But
we saw there's over 100 pages,
there
and
is.
there's at least 10 albums on each page.
In the back end of the book that I showed earlier, Steve, it lists the discography, but it's not just Pink Floyd. It's the Pink Floyd adjacent discography. And these are all just the official ones. It lists everything from singles to UK albums to US albums to solo albums, and all of the Pink Floyd adjacent solo albums to go through on the backside. So there's a lot of work to do if you're going to go in that direction.
Yeah,
I don't think I can.
it is. I'm not.
Well, all right, Steve, now that we've gone through that, do you have an answer? Which one's Pink?
No, I'm still confused by the whole damn thing. But just listen to "Wish You Were Here." They try to explain it, but
All right, we can go through that.
this is a great group, and it's a group that actually I have a full cube dedicated to. I have
Yep.
that many albums from them.
Same here. All right, folks. Well, you have been listening and or watching to two guys talking about Pink Floyd records, a Final Community podcast, just the studio albums. But like I said, chime in the comments if you'd like us to attempt a deep dive into the bootlegs that we have. And there's no way we could cover everything, so I think we'd just be showing off our favorites and say which ones sound good. But let us know if you'd like that at some point down the line. All right. Well, until next time, my name's Jim, and I own a record store, which I got to get to here in a couple minutes.
I'm Steve, a record collector, and I got to head to a farmer's market. So,
Watch out for Samus while you're down there, and dogs and sheep.
yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, Jim. Bye, everybody.